Reports are starting to surface out of Cleveland that Jimmy Haslam is zeroing in on John Harbaugh. And if you know anything about what just happened in Baltimore, you know why this is absolutely massive. John Harbaugh, let me say that name again. John Harbaugh just parted ways with the Baltimore Ravens after damn near 2 decades of being one of the most respected coaches in the entire league. And now, according to multiple Cleveland insiders and reporters, Jimmy Haslam wants him. Bad. And listen, this isn't just about hiring a good coach. This is about what John Harbaugh represents for Shedeur Sanders specifically. Because if there's one coach in the entire NFL right now, one coach with a proven track record of developing quarterbacks at the highest level, it's John Harbaugh. Think about it. Lamar Jackson, Joe Flacco. 2 completely different quarterbacks, 2 completely different skill sets, and John Harbaugh got the absolute best out of both of them. Flacco won a Super Bowl under Harbaugh. Lamar won an MVP under Harbaugh. That's not a coincidence. That's elite quarterback development. And now you're telling me that same coach could be paired with Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland? With a young quarterback who's been sitting, watching, waiting for his opportunity while everything around him has been pure chaos? That's not just a good fit. That's potentially a perfect match. But let me walk y'all through why this matters so much and why Browns fans online are losing their minds right now. Let's go back to the draft, because there's context here that a lot of people either forgot or never knew in the first place. From what's been discussed in media circles, John Harbaugh allegedly wanted to draft Shadur Sanders to the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I'm saying allegedly because we're not privy to every conversation that happens behind closed doors. But multiple sources have mentioned this. Multiple analysts brought it up during draft coverage. And based on what we've seen from John Harbaugh's history, it makes perfect sense. Harbaugh has always been aggressive about finding franchise quarterbacks. He's always been willing to take risks on players he believes in. So the idea that he saw something special in Shadur? That tracks. But here's where it gets interesting. According to those same discussions, Shadur turned down the opportunity. And the reason? He didn't want to be a backup. He wanted to start. He wanted to be the guy from day one. Now, whether you agree with that decision or not, you have to respect the mindset. Shadur Sanders came into this league with confidence. He believed he was ready to play immediately. And he wasn't willing to sit behind Lamar Jackson, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, just to wait for his turn. That tells you something about his mentality. That tells you he's not afraid of pressure. He's not afraid of expectations. He wants the ball in his hands. But then Cleveland drafted him. And what happened? He sat anyway. Now, I'm not saying the situations are the same. Baltimore would have been a different scenario entirely, but the irony is hard to ignore. Shadur wanted to start immediately, and instead he ended up in a situation where he's been watching from the sideline while other guys get reps. And that brings us to the present. Because if Jimmy Haslam really is targeting John Harbaugh, and if John Harbaugh really did want Shedeur Sanders in Baltimore, then this hire would send a very clear message. Shedeur is the guy. Period. Let me be real with y'all for a second. There are a lot of coaches in the NFL. There are a lot of coaches who've had success, but John Harbaugh is different. And it's not just because of his resume. It's because of how he handles quarterbacks. It's because of how he builds culture. It's because of how he commands respect in the locker room without being overbearing or creating chaos. Think about the names he's worked with. Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, Lamar Jackson. These are not easy personalities. These are alpha males. These are guys who demand respect and who aren't afraid to speak their minds. And John Harbaugh managed all of them. He didn't just manage them, he thrived with them. He built championship-caliber teams with them. He got them to buy into a system and a culture that led to sustained success. Now compare that to what we've seen in Cleveland. The locker room has been described as tense. There have been reports of frustration. There have been questions about leadership. And when you're trying to develop a young quarterback in that kind of environment, it's almost impossible to succeed. But John Harbaugh, he's dealt with that before. He knows how to navigate those waters. He knows how to build trust with young players while also holding veterans accountable. He knows how to create an environment where everyone feels like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And for Shadur Sanders specifically, that could be the difference between becoming a franchise quarterback or being labeled a bust before he even gets a fair shot. Now, here's where this story takes another turn. Because it's not just about football. It's not just about schemes and playbooks and quarterback development. John Harbaugh has deep, deep roots in Cleveland. And I'm not talking about casual connections. I'm talking about family ties. I'm talking about growing up a Browns fan. According to an interview Harbaugh did back in the day, his mother is from Cleveland. She went to Shaw High School in East Cleveland. His father is from a town about an hour and a half south of Cleveland. And they met at Bowling Green State University. Harbaugh himself said, "All of our family on my mom's side is from Cleveland, and all of my family on my dad's side are Browns fans. We all grew up Browns fans." Let that sink in for a second. John Harbaugh grew up watching the Browns. He grew up rooting for the Browns. He grew up with Art Modell, Leroy Kelly, and all the legends of that era. This isn't some hired gun coming in from the outside. This isn't some coach who's just looking for a paycheck. This is a guy who has a personal connection to this city. A guy who understands what it means to be a Browns fan. A guy who knows the history, the heartbreak, and the hunger for a championship. And if Jimmy Haslam is smart, and I mean really smart, he'll understand what that means for this franchise. Because hiring John Harbaugh wouldn't just be about football. It would be about healing. It would be about bringing someone home who understands the weight of this organization. And for Shadur Sanders, that kind of leadership could be invaluable because when you're a young quarterback trying to find your way in this league, having a coach who genuinely cares about the city and the team makes all the difference in the world. Now let's address the elephant in the room, because I know what some of y'all are thinking. I know what the media has been saying. They've been talking about the baggage that comes with Shedeur Sanders. They've been talking about his father, Deion Sanders, and the media circus that follows Coach Prime everywhere he goes. They've been talking about the social media presence, the attention, the expectations. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like none of that exists. It does. Shedeur Sanders comes with a spotlight. He comes with opinions. He comes with people like me and thousands of other content creators who are going to analyze every single move he makes. But here's the thing. If there's one coach in the entire NFL who can handle that, it's John Harbaugh. Think about what he dealt with in Baltimore. He had Ray Lewis, one of the most outspoken players in NFL history. He had Ed Reed, another Hall of Famer with strong opinions. He had Lamar Jackson, who became one of the most scrutinized quarterbacks in the league because of his unique playing style. And through all of that, John Harbaugh never lost control. He never let the noise distract from the mission. He never let outside opinions dictate what happened inside the building. So when people talk about the baggage that comes with Shedeur Sanders, I have to ask, compared to what? Compared to managing a locker room full of future Hall of Famers with massive egos? Compared to dealing with constant media questions about whether your quarterback can throw the ball well enough to win in the playoffs? John Harbaugh has been through it all, and he's thrived through it all. So the idea that he would be intimidated by the attention that comes with Shedeur Sanders? That doesn't make sense. In fact, I'd argue the opposite. I'd argue that John Harbaugh is exactly the kind of coach who would embrace that challenge. He'd embrace the opportunity to prove that he can develop a young quarterback under intense scrutiny. He'd embrace the chance to silence the doubters. And for Shedeur, having a coach who doesn't shy away from the spotlight but also doesn't feed into the drama, that's exactly what he needs. Let's talk bigger picture for a second. Because if this hire happens, it's not just about Shedeur Sanders, it's about the entire trajectory of the Cleveland Browns. Think about where this franchise has been over the last few years. Constant coaching changes, constant quarterback questions, constant chaos. And despite having talented rosters at times, they've never been able to put it all together. But John Harbaugh represents stability. He represents consistency. He represents a proven winner who knows how to build a team the right way. If Jimmy Haslam really does hand John Harbaugh a blank check, and based on what Cleveland reporters are saying, that's exactly what needs to happen. Then this could be the culture reset the Browns have been desperate for. Because it's not just about winning games, it's about changing the mentality. It's about creating an environment where players want to come and play. It's about building something sustainable that lasts beyond 1 or 2 seasons. And with Shedeur Sanders as the quarterback and John Harbaugh as the head coach, Cleveland could finally have the foundation they've been searching for. Now, I'm not sitting here saying they're going to win the Super Bowl next year. I'm not saying everything is going to be perfect overnight. But what I am saying is that this pairing makes sense on so many levels that it's almost hard to ignore. You've got a young quarterback with elite talent who's been waiting for his opportunity. You've got a head coach with a proven track record of developing quarterbacks and building winning cultures. And you've got an owner who, for all the criticism he's received, seems willing to do whatever it takes to turn this franchise around. If those three pieces come together, Cleveland could be dangerous. Like, legitimately dangerous. Now, let me show y'all what Cleveland fans are saying online, because their reactions tell you everything you need to know about how big this would be. One Cleveland reporter said, "If I'm Jimmy, I'm handing John Harbaugh a blank check. Instant culture reset, instant respect. This is your leader of men." Another fan said, "Andrew Berry should be personally driving to pick him up right now." And honestly, I don't blame them for feeling that way, because when you've been through as much disappointment as Browns fans have, you recognize when a real opportunity presents itself. This isn't about hype. This isn't about hope. This is about tangible change. This is about bringing in someone who's actually done it before. And the fact that John Harbaugh is trending worldwide right now, that tells you how big of a deal this is. This isn't just a Cleveland story. This is a national story. This is the kind of hire that would shift the entire landscape of the AFC North. Because let's be real for a second. If John Harbaugh goes to Cleveland and brings Shadur Sanders along with him, that division just got a lot more interesting. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, they'd all have to take Cleveland seriously in a way they haven't in years. And that's what makes this so compelling. It's not just about one team getting better. It's about the entire narrative changing. But let me pump the brakes for just a second. Because as exciting as all of this sounds, there are still questions that need to be asked. Why did John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens part ways in the first place? Was it mutual? Was there tension behind the scenes? And if there was, what does that mean for his next opportunity? I'm not saying there's anything shady going on. I'm just saying we don't have all the information yet. And until we do, it's important to approach this with at least a little bit of caution. Because coaching hires can go wrong. We've seen it happen over and over again. A coach who was successful in one place doesn't always translate to another situation. Chemistry matters, fit matters, timing matters. And while everything about this pairing seems to make sense on paper, we won't really know until it happens. The other question is about Shadur himself. Because as much as we talk about him being ready, the reality is he hasn't played meaningful NFL snaps yet. We don't know how he's going to respond to the speed of the game. We don't know how he's going to handle adversity when things don't go his way. John Harbaugh can provide structure. He can provide guidance. But at the end of the day, Shadur is the one who has to perform. He's the one who has to prove that he's worthy of being a franchise quarterback. And that's a lot of pressure, especially in a city like Cleveland where expectations are sky high and patience is razor thin. Let me take a step back and talk about what this really represents. Because this story isn't just about football. It's about legacy. It's about redemption. It's about second chances. For John Harbaugh, this could be an opportunity to prove that his success in Baltimore wasn't a fluke. That he can build a winner anywhere. That he can take a franchise that's been stuck in mediocrity and turn them into a contender. For Shadur Sanders, this could be the fresh start he needs. A coach who believes in him, a system that fits his skill set, a chance to show the world that he's more than just a name, that he's a legitimate NFL quarterback. And for Cleveland, this could be the moment everything changes, the moment they finally get it right, the moment they stop being the punchline and start being the threat. But here's the thing, none of that is guaranteed. None of that is promised. And that's what makes this so nerve-wracking for Browns fans, because they've been here before. They've seen the hype, they've felt the hope, and they've watched it all come crashing down time and time again. So while this news is exciting, while it's generating buzz and getting people's attention, there's still a part of them that's holding their breath. Still a part of them that's waiting for the other shoe to drop. And honestly, I get it. I understand that hesitation. Because when you've been let down as many times as they have, optimism doesn't come easy. So where do we go from here? What's the next step in all of this? Well, if the reports are true, if Jimmy Haslam really is targeting John Harbaugh, then we could hear something soon. Maybe not immediately. Maybe not within the next 48 hours like some fans are hoping. But soon. Because coaching hires don't happen overnight. There are negotiations, there are conversations, there are details that need to be worked out. But the fact that this is even being discussed, the fact that Cleveland insiders are putting Harbaugh's name out there, that tells you something is happening behind the scenes. And if this does go through, if John Harbaugh becomes the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns, then everything changes. The entire narrative around this franchise shifts. The expectations shift, the possibilities shift. But until then, all we can do is wait. All we can do is watch. All we can do is speculate and discuss and debate what this could mean. Because that's where we are right now. In the middle of uncertainty. In the middle of anticipation. In the middle of a story that could go a dozen different directions depending on what happens next. And for Browns fans, for Shedeur Sanders fans, for anyone who's been following this situation closely, that's both exciting and terrifying at the same time. Let me be real with y'all one more time before we wrap this up, because I think it's important to acknowledge the uncomfortable reality of all of this. Shadur Sanders has been in a tough spot since he got to Cleveland. That's not an excuse. That's not me trying to defend every decision he's made or every throw he's attempted. That's just the truth. He's been in a situation where the coaching staff didn't seem fully committed to him, where the offensive line hasn't given him the protection he needs, where the weapons around him haven't been consistent, where the locker room culture has been questionable at best. And through all of that, he's had to sit and watch. He's had to be patient. He's had to deal with the whispers and the criticisms and the constant speculation about whether he's good enough. That's not easy. Especially for a guy who came into this league with as much confidence as Shadur has. But here's the thing. If John Harbaugh comes to Cleveland, all of that changes. The structure changes. The culture changes. The expectations change. And for the first time since he was drafted, Shadur Sanders would have a coach who genuinely believes in him. A coach who sees his potential. A coach who's willing to build an entire system around maximizing his strengths. That's not a small thing. That's massive. But it also raises the stakes. Because if this does happen, if Harbaugh and Shadur are paired together, then there are no more excuses. There's no more, well, the situation wasn't ideal. There's no more, he didn't have the right support. It's put up or shut up time. And that's going to be uncomfortable for some people to watch. So where does that leave us? What's the takeaway from all of this? Honestly, I don't know. And I think that's the point. This story is still unfolding. There are still too many variables, too many unknowns, too many questions that haven't been answered yet. But what I do know is this. If Jimmy Haslam is serious about turning the Cleveland Browns into a championship contender, hiring John Harbaugh to coach Shadur Sanders would be one hell of a statement. It would show that he's willing to go all in, that he's willing to take a risk on a pairing that makes sense on every level but hasn't been proven yet. And for Browns fans who've been waiting for something, anything to believe in, that would be enough, at least for now.